Yo, it's your boy Logos, and today I want to react to Killer Mike on the Joe Rogan podcast explaining his interview with the NRA. I never known he did an interview with the NRA, but honestly I'm not surprised after listening to Killer Mike and some of the stuff that he says. I'm a fan of him, and a couple of days ago I listened to his speech at Fire, I think the Free and Individual Expression Conference. I think it's all about defending free speech, the First Amendment, and liberty. And he goes into the point that just because somebody says something that you disagree with doesn't mean they should just be shutting up. And liberals nowadays that claim to be fighting the system, they need to be careful of not using the same system that they claim is oppressing them to oppress others, because you're nothing more than the same people that you claim to hate so much. And I appreciate him saying that, even though some people might not like it and they may throw off, like, I don't know, stupid labels like Coon, Uncle Tom, this and the other. People who do stuff like that, it's hard for me to take them seriously because they seem very simple-minded. Killer Mike never came across like that for me. I always like the stuff that he said, and even stuff that I do disagree with, I can understand where he's coming from. You don't have to agree with everybody, but listening to them talk and the freedom to listen to them talk is very important. And that's something else he does emphasize in that speech, where I will link down below. I can't name the full name of the YouTube channel or organization. I just understand the acronym was like FIRE, and it stands for like free speech and liberty and expression. But let's watch this interview and see what Killer Mike got to say.
Here, Willa Walker says the rest of country music is just biting rap and acting like they aren't. So,
well, I think it was a little bit of that, but I think at one point in time it was a little that a lot of rappers would look at guys like Waylon Jennings and Johnny Cash and old school gangster country guys.
Outlaw country is way different from today. I love outlaw country. You can't tell me Waylon Jennings, Chris Christopherson, Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash aren't kicking it. Like, that's what the fuck is up, right?
Yeah.
But that's not the same as you allocating a Nelly beat to your song and talking about cowboy boots instead of Air Force Ones.
No.
Not the same.
No.
There's something about the Allman Brothers Midnight Rider and, Whipping Post that's radically different than you just singing about your Ford and rafting on Saturdays with your chick.
Yeah, I don't think people even understand Tied to the Whipping Post. You can't fake that song.
When they came at me about the NRA interview last year, every day I smoked a joint, woke up and laughed and listened to that record. Like, every single day. I just wanted you guys to know it didn't bother me any. My wife just told me to shut up talking to you all. We went shooting a lot more, and we played Allman Brothers Whipping Post every morning because I had to remind myself that this is normal, that you're being done like this publicly because you're disagreeing with a system that people have agreed to that you don't agree to, and it's okay not to agree. So the Allman Brothers really got me through that segment and stopped me from punching a lot of bourgeoisie black people in the face.
Well, you're a proponent of your right to carry a gun.
Yeah. And I'm a lover of the United States Constitution as a whole, of all our rights and amendments. But in particular, the First and Second Amendment rights matter to me as an African American, as an American. First and foremost, as an African American, I've only been free 55 years. My parents were born in apartheid. And as an American, we are a country that broke off from what we felt like was the tyranny of a monarchy. And we did that because farmers and guns dared to wage guerrilla warfare against, at that time, one of the largest armies and navies in the world. So I honor that by continuing to be in the spirit of those farmers. In the continuance of Crispus Attucks, the first person to die in the American Revolution was a black man. So for me, I would dishonor those patriots who started this country and Crispus Attucks, and I would dishonor the lineage as an African American who's only 55 years in freedom by giving government my gun back. It's not something I believe in.
Government is people. Part of the problem with giving government anything is that they're just people. They're not something special.
Absolutely.
They're not flawless.
Absolutely.
You give people power over you, and they will. I mean, this is not saying we should stockpile guns and point them at the government, but if people have guns, it's way harder to just take over cities.
Absolutely.
That shit happens all the time in other countries. It does happen.
Absolutely.
And just because some people may say, well, our government now is going to do that there's a way that could happen. But who knows, maybe 20 years from now, 30 years from now, especially with technology getting more increased and more surveillance, you see how they're doing stuff in China. And from my understanding, that stuff's starting to creep over here in the West. Who knows how the world could look? So don't say just because it can't happen now doesn't mean it can happen in 5 years, 20 years, 30 years. Just because it can't happen to you doesn't mean it can happen to your grandkids. And do you want your grandkids to go through that stuff? I think not.
where
Absolutely.
people get occupied. It's just, and governments turn on them, and governments change the rules, and places that were democracies are no longer so.
Absolutely.
That's real.
And we're never far from it. As safe as you feel, you're never far from it.
But I think what we need more of is people like you that are a reasonable, very educated in the matter, very articulate person who comes from a place where they don't expect that argument to come from.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I understand.
You know, like you think about left-wing people or Democratic people, progressive people, you always think, you think about Democratic people overwhelmingly being appreciated by the black community, and you always associate them with being anti-gun.
Yeah.
That's a common thing. So when a guy like you steps out and says, no, I think it's a disservice to take this right away.
Absolutely.
And if I didn't support it and fight for it.
I've been an African American 40 something years now, right? I have known Democrats primarily my entire life. I'm from the South, in particular the Southeast, Alabama, Georgia, Florida. I have never known a black male Democrat that was working class that did not own a weapon.
Exactly.
So I'm going to follow the examples of my grandfather. I'm not going to listen to the National Party and their rhetoric about dearming the population.
I think obviously we could agree that we would all love it if we never needed guns.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. Right? Of course. Yeah. Who wouldn't?
I'd rather not need it than be prepared, though.
Yes.
Than not be prepared.
Sure. Right? Better to have it not to need it than need it not to have it.
Yeah. And the part of the country I'm from and what you do often. Like, I'm from a part of the country. I grew up fishing, hunting, growing food. My sister grows food. Don't get to hunt as regularly now. Still fish occasionally. Shouts out to Greg Street, one of our biggest TJs down there. Is a great fisherman, right? But this is as normal in my part of the country as not having straws and being able to smoke in public in places like LA. It's not that big of a deal. In my mind state, a household should have 5 guns, right? You should have a revolver, you should have a semi-automatic for if you and your wife carrying out, in public. You should have a shotgun just because it's a great all-around gun to have, whether it's burglars or vermin. And you should have bolt-action rifles, some course in case you got to kill your meat. You should have a semi-automatic rifle to, defend against tyranny, just to fuck off on Sundays and show your homeboys whose dick bigger. But what you should not do is give up your right to own weapons.
Yeah, or use them on people. That's what the thing about using them on people is that it's so rare but so horrific and so common for something that's so horrific, and everybody's against it. But I don't understand how you would ever, by taking guns. I mean, you would have to take all the guns away to stop that from happening.
But how are you going to do it?
How are you going to do that?
Yeah, criminals aren't going to give up guns.
Of course not.
So,
there's no way.
The regular people should probably not do that either.
Yeah, that's where it gets squirrely. It's like, how are you going to get those guns from the criminals? You're not. You're not going to.
You're not going to.
It's a joke.
What we can do, though, and I would say as an owner, you get lazy sometimes. You don't train enough. We should train more, and that doesn't mean go try to be the quickest draw and you practice your. But what you want to do is make sure you know what you're doing with your weapon. Make sure you know how to clean your weapon. Make sure you know how to store your weapon. And I took my son and my nephew. And I'm shooting. I'm about to start taking my 11-year-old girl, Michael, shooting because I want them to know what they do if they see a gun. So we've already went through, what do you do if you're somewhere and you see a gun? Mm-hmm. How do you get out of that situation, get other kids out of that situation and let an adult know? All that comes with it, And, the strange thing to me is that my mother, when she was in high school, was actually taught how to shoot a rifle, right? Because the NRA, which is now vilified and hated for reasons, some deservedly so, some not, they used to have big programs in public schools to make sure that children knew firearm safety. So my mother's school and other schools benefited from that. I don't care if it was just that sheet of paper that told you gun safety before you went in a range. That was just a piece of propaganda they did that was better for the overall public. So I tend to say, as Americans, we've gotten away from stuff like trades in school. We've gotten away from different options besides funneling our kids into college debt. And we've also gotten away from basic training, such as balancing a checkbook, basic home economics, how do you make lasagna at home by yourself, and stuff like gun shooting and archery. I think that if those things return to public school, you get a safer, more confident student body. Mm-hmm. You get a reduction on things like bullying and bullshit. And you get an increase on self-propelled interests of children, and you start to grow scholars that excel.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Do you really? How is it going to stop bullying? Just by knowing that more kids know how to use guns?
Guns
more
don't
kids
stop
are
bullying.
armed?
No, boxing class stops bullying. Pimp C said that. No one wants to fight somebody who's going to fight back.
That's very true. Damn it, Chris so fucking fast. I hate YouTube now with this autoplay option. I can't even find a way to stop it from happening. But I agree completely with everything Killer Mike said. if you train kids to, you know, how to be around guns and not to use them and get an adult, I think we'll get a lot less of these tragic accidents happening. Also, train the adults more, you get more of these cases where kids are prevented from hurting themselves. Adults prevent themselves from hurting others or themselves too. I don't know. I think it's just all around better option than taking guns away. I don't trust any government, same way I don't trust any politician completely. So having something to defend myself and my family just sounds good. But even outside of government, it's much more it's much faster for me to grab a gun and defend myself compared to calling the phone. I mean picking up the phone, calling the police, waiting for them to show up, bust in, and hopefully stop the killer or whoever from robbing me, beam me up, and doing whatever they want. I don't know. If you comparing 5 seconds for me to reach my gun, load it, and point, or 10 seconds compared to what, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. By that time, I could be gone. By that time, my whole family could be gone. And I don't want to go out wishing I had a weapon. I want to just have a weapon and do my best to save my life and my family's life. I really don't understand what people would think they're going to change by banning guns. I don't know. When you look at what's happening in Great Britain, they're still having problems with, I don't know, murder and such and so forth. They're not using guns, but it's knife attacks and stuff like that. No matter what you do, people gonna find a way to kill people if they want to kill. I don't think guns is the issue because the gun isn't picking up themselves, loading themselves up, and shooting random people. It's crazy people doing it, and if you attack that issue, maybe you get somewhere. I don't know. That sounds like a better option to me than trying to take people guns away. I don't know why you would trust a criminal to turn in their gun when they already should have a gun to begin with. It just sounds like a good way for them to self-snitch and go back to prison. They're not going to do that unless they're really stupid, but I don't know. It doesn't seem to me like they really care much about safety. It just seems like another way of controlling. For all the reasons that I laid out, and Killer Mike and Joe Rogan. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. It's your boy Logos, and I'll see you next time. Peace.